Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a really fascinating masterclass all about the absolute secret to speaking English naturally. We're going to completely destroy that exhausting habit of translating everything in your head before you speak. And instead, we're going to look at exactly how to reprogram the way your brain processes English. If you've ever felt stuck, kind of hitting a wall in your language learning journey, this is exactly what you need. So let's jump right in. I want you to ask yourself this question right now. Do you freeze up when trying to speak? Have you ever felt like your brain is suddenly this old, lagging computer trying to run software that's just way too heavy? You're sitting there, the gears are grinding, and the natural flow of the conversation just completely dies before you can even finish your sentence. It's incredibly frustrating, right? But it turns out there's a very specific biological reason this happens, and more importantly, a foolproof way to fix it. So, here is our roadmap for today to get you past that roadblock. Number 1, the translation wall. Number 2, the high cognitive cost. 3, thinking directly in English. 4, the shadowing technique. And finally, number 5, the path to fluency. Part 1, the translation wall, or why do you freeze? This right here is the exhausting mental gymnastics routine that so many language learners fall into. Step 1, you hear the English. Step 2, you translate it back into your native language. Let's just use Portuguese, for example. Step 3, you formulate your response in Portuguese, and then you try to frantically translate it back into English before speaking. Well, by the time you've done all of that, the conversation has completely moved on. You stutter, you freeze, and the naturalness is just gone. It's a completely unsustainable cycle.
Part 2. The high cognitive cost. How your brain's energy is actually being spent.
Think about it this way. Your brain only has so much bandwidth for any given task. The physical act of translating back and forth consumes a massive 80% of your cognitive energy. 80%! That leaves a measly 20% for actual communication. Things like reading a room, expressing emotion, actually connecting with the person you're talking to. No wonder it feels mentally exhausting.
A major reason for this energy drain is this huge myth that we should learn isolated words like little pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. For example, thinking I plus am plus going plus to plus the store. But here's the thing. Native speakers don't assemble puzzles in their heads. They use what are called chunks. They hear and say I'm gonna the store as one single fluid unit of sound and meaning. Learning chunks instead of individual words drastically reduces that heavy cognitive load.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is the difference between language analysis and language acquisition. The old, exhausting way is analyzing grammar rules, literally trying to mathematically construct a sentence. The natural, efficient method is acquisition. And that simply means listening to and repeating these blocks or chunks of language until they become an absolute reflex. Part 3. Thinking directly in English and the mindset shift required to get there. There is an amazing, super simple exercise for this called routine narration. The goal is to just narrate your day out loud, but you translate concepts directly, not words. If you see an apple, do not think of the word for apple in your native language, like maçã in Portuguese, and then translate it. Look directly at the physical object, the concept itself, and just say apple. You're literally tying the English word directly to the real-world object in your brain. But I know what you're thinking. What happens when you just don't know the word? This brilliantly illustrates our next tool, circumlocution. Circumlocution is your ultimate survival tool. All it means is describing what you don't know using the words you already have. If you forget the word kettle, you don't reach for Google Translate. No way. You stay inside the English language and you say, the thing to boil water. This forces your brain to remain in an English-thinking state, and it is incredibly effective. Part 4. The shadowing technique. Active immersion. First things first, we have to break a very common illusion here. A lot of learners think they can just passively absorb a language by, listening to it while they sleep or having it on in the background while they work. But that's entirely passive, and it just doesn't create the neural connections you actually need for speaking. We have to replace that passive listening with intensive shadowing, which is a highly active, focused form of mimicry. Here are the ground rules of intensive shadowing. You don't just repeat the words. You imitate everything, the tone, the pauses, the exact intonation of the native speaker. It's like you're an actor learning a script. Also, the material you use has to be exactly 70% comprehensible to you. Why 70%? Because if you understand 100%, you aren't actually learning anything new. But if you understand 0%, your brain panics and goes right back to that exhausting mental translation. 70% is the absolute sweet spot for real acquisition. Part 5. The path to fluency. Flexibility over perfection.
I really want this next point to sink in. It is totally permitted to forget words. Seriously. True fluency isn't about memorizing the entire dictionary. Native speakers forget words all the time. Fluency is simply about being flexible and creative with the vocabulary that you already have at your disposal. See, when you constantly translate in your head, you're engaging in an exhausting, stressful pursuit of perfection. You're trying to map your native language exactly, word for word, onto English. Fluency, on the other hand, is about efficiency and flexibility. If your message reached the other person and they understood you, guess what? You were successful. Stop trying to be mathematically perfect and just start trying to be comprehensible. So, to summarize all of this, here are the 3 golden, actionable rules for your everyday practice to permanently shift your brain from translation to acquisition. Number 1, stop translating individual words and start using chunks. Number 2, narrate your environment in real time by linking English directly to concepts. And number 3, when you get stuck, use circumlocution. Describe what you don't know instead of reaching for a dictionary. So I've got a challenge for you. A 7-day challenge, to be exact. For the next 7 days, every single time you think of a phrase in your native language that you want to say in English, force yourself to find the simplest English concept to express it, and do it without using a dictionary. Force your brain to stay inside the English language using the exact tools we just talked about. I want to leave you with a really powerful thought today. Fluency is not a destination. It is the removal of the obstacles that prevent you from being yourself in another language. Mental translation is literally the biggest obstacle in your way right now. So take the challenge, drop the dictionary, and start communicating naturally. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, but before you go, let me ask you this. If true fluency isn't a destination, but rather the removal of obstacles, what is the very first obstacle you are going to remove today?